May we all strive for the level of autonomy of Chuck Bass at age 15 as we enter our 30s.
Welcome to Stan, the podcast where we dissect our enthusiastic and at times obsessive relationships with cultural phenomena. I mean, have you ever caught yourself unironically insisting that it's not just a phase? Or stayed up all night to finish that book that you just can't put down? Or have you ever had such a huge crush on a celebrity that it made your heart physically ache? I have. So join me as we figure out why certain things or people capture our attention and affection so well. I'm really happy that you're here. Good morning, Upper East Siders. We are doing an episode on the ultimate teen drama. If you haven't watched Gossip Girl, then maybe your social life in high school was a lot less dramatic than my own, because in some ways it normalized acting hideously to each other. But that's a story for later. First, let me set the tone. Gossip Girl began as a book series, which was adapted into a television series set in New York City. Famously, the TV series filmed 121 episodes over 6 seasons on location in New York, which made the production cost between $10,000 and $60,000 per episode. It followed the lives of wealthy teens living in the affluent neighborhood of the Upper East Side. And when I say wealthy, I mean comically so. The token poor family of the series lived in a huge loft in Dumbo, with a gallery-owning former superstar musician father. Beyond their extreme wealth, the catch is that there is this blog, Stay With Me Gen Z, this was before social media, called Gossip Girl, which receives anonymous tips and then publicizes people's secrets on their website to stir up trouble. A lot of the plot is driven either by scandals the blogger reveals to the school or by the main characters trying to figure out who the blogger is. To some extent, the characters are contending with very normal teenage problems like college applications and cheating scandals and experimenting with drugs, but also allegedly, because of their money, they were doing insane shit, like buying clubs and hotels, getting involved in financial scandals, and marrying royalty, all at the age of 16. In short, their money allowed them to supersede the limiting storylines of many teen dramas. They were essentially operating as adults, but still turning in midterm essays and college applications. Either way, it created aspirational parasocial relationships for many young people, including me. I had such a warped sense of what young adulthood was going to be like. I moved to New York at 19, and I fully thought I was going to be sipping martinis at hotel bars from the get-go. I don't do that now. If you are in college doing that, grow the fuck up, okay? I remember my senior year calling my mother, disappointed about how nobody wanted to go to Brooklyn on a Saturday night. And she was like, look, New York bars are always going to be there. What you're going to miss is playing beer pong in the sticky floored basement of some gross frat house. And she was right. That's what I miss. Allow yourself to be a college student. If you're worried about your college experience not being glamorous enough, you're doing it wrong. Back to Gossip Girl. Kind of warped what acceptable behavior was and the ways one should treat their friends and peers. In Gossip Girl, everything was fair in love and war, and all the characters were constantly screwing each other over and throwing each other under the bus for their own ends. And for young, impressionable people who haven't developed their brains enough, I don't think that was a good message to live by. This is illustrated by the fact that so many copycats popped up. There was Ask FM, Yik Yak, and if you went to a school in England like me, even a page called Little Gossip. Little Gossip was a simple website where you typed in the name of your school or university and you were redirected to a message board filled with anonymous posts about people in your school. I'm talking names included. Thankfully, schools and community groups responded quickly and the website was disbanded. For me, Little Gossip is one of the many ways in which Gossip Girl was weirdly prescient with technology, insofar as there was no regulation on what could be posted, and people posted the wildest shit anonymously with no evidence. As we know nowadays, misinformation spreads twice as fast as true information. And social media has enabled people to do exactly the same thing. Like, a lot of people don't realize that someone can come on the platform, throw on a pair of scrubs, and claim to be a doctor or a therapist. They don't actually have to have the qualifications. As a tummy issues girly, this has driven me insane. I love that my friends are concerned about the condition, but the fact that people will text me videos of some influencer telling everyone she healed her gut by balancing her hormones with some vitamin powder that you can buy in a link in her bio is not fucking helpful. Another way that it was weirdly prescient is the fact that, as our recent guest Dido Raya often speaks about on her channel, we've kind of accepted that we live in a bit of a panopticon where it's seen as normal and even virtuous to share every small part of our lives on social media. I keep seeing videos on social media that people take of strangers in public, and I'm like, you guys shouldn't be secretly filming strangers without their consent. I feel like that's obvious. Also, Gossip Girl had a live tracker of where everyone was, and I feel like that's just kind of Find My Friends before Find My Friends was a thing. When the TV show came out, people were eating it up. It launched the careers of some of the most famous actors we have in Hollywood today. First of all, we have Blake Lively, who was reportedly earning $60,000 per episode by the end of the series. She has since become a household name and has gone on to star in multiple movies. And most importantly, she's now considered to be Taylor Swift's best friend. In the show, she's best friends with Mean Girl icon Blair Waldorf. Heads up, I am a Blair Waldorf apologist, and I lay out my case in the interview. Blair is played by Leighton Meester, who is coming back onto the scene in Rachel Sennett's I Love LA. For the men, we have Penn Badgley, who is now known for his starring role as Joe Goldberg in You. As we speak about in this episode, Taylor Momsen, who played the troublemaking alternative little sister of one of the main cast, is now resurging onto the scene through touring with her band, The Pretty Reckless. Anyway, I think that's enough background information because I am so hyped to introduce this interview. I don't think I've laughed this hard with total strangers in a long time. Yarden and Kaia run such a fun and interesting podcast called Not My Scene, which dissects internet culture in a really thoughtful and funny way. They also have such insane chemistry and a really infectious charm. But without further ado, here's our interview.
You know you love me. XOXO. Gossip Girl.
I'm Yarden,
I'm Kaia.
and we host a podcast together called Not My Scene. We do deep dives on different communities, subcultures, corners of the internet, and we've also been best friends for over 20 years. So we'd always wanted to make a podcast together, and we love doing that. And we're so happy to be on your pod.
You guys have been keeping me company on a lot of my lunch breaks recently. I've really enjoyed the pod.
So glad to hear
Oh,
it.
thank you so much.
It is like, it's so much fun to be able to do deep dives on Reddit late at night and then feel like, at the very least, it's like contributing to my creative endeavors. Like, this is kind of my job now, to be on Reddit at like 2 a.m.
So funny because I know a lot of artists and they're like, you need to create the work that needs to be created. Find the work that you need to do, like let it just flow through you. And I'm like, amazing, that work is talking about Blair Waldorf for 3 hours.
It's screaming to get out of me. I have to let this work out of me.
So my first question was, when did you get into Gossip Girl, and do you remember your first encounter with it?
Yeah. Can I go first, Den?
Yeah, go for it.
I think we're going to have a similar answer. And I can't wait to hear how you got into it, Allegra.
Oh, I'm going to tell you whether you ask or not. So.
Okay, good.
Don't worry.
I texted Yarden before we recorded today to be like, hey, Can I talk about your period on the podcast? And she said yes. So now we can get into it. When Yarden and I were in middle school, I think we were in seventh grade, formative years. We went to this sleepaway camp for the first time. It was like a Christian camp, and neither of us are Christian, but we really wanted to go have this quintessentially American, like, sleepaway camp away from our parents. We went together. It feels like it was like such a perfect, um, kind of like opening parentheses on becoming tweens or teens,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
before
Yes.
I feel like we were so childlike, and we still were, but I remember, like, for example, we had like gender segregated cabins, and like one night the like boy counselors came into like the girl cabin, and there was like this whole drama because the girls that were in our cabin were kind of like evil little girls, and they convinced these boy counselors to tell us scary stories, and then they reported them to the camp.
They were like begging for scarier stories, and then they were like, the stories were
They
too
were too scary. They
scary.
were too inappropriate. And like the boys got in a ton of
No.
trouble. And I remember this. Like, I was like, first of all, this is the first time I've ever interacted with like teenage boys. And also, this was like such a social betrayal. Like, I couldn't believe like how this drama had unfolded. We are from a really small town. So I feel like it was just like social overstimulation. And
Yeah.
we were like clinging to each other the whole time. And then Yarden got her period for the first time at this
Oh
camp.
my god. You couldn't write it in like a coming of age novel. You know
Right.
what I
Like,
mean?
but we were like, we can't tell anyone. Like, something horrible has
Yeah.
happened.
Like, this doesn't happen to anyone else.
It's not like I'm like maybe in a cabin filled with like menstruating tweens, and that's why I got my period for the first time.
Oh.
All that said, Yarden gets her period for the first time at this sleepaway camp. We have just met teenage boys for the first time. We're away from home, and we're on the bus going back to our hometown, and she like pulled out Gossip Girl and was reading it, the book, and shared it with me, and we started reading it together, and I was hooked. Like, and that was like the beginning of like my coming of age, I feel like. Den,
Wow.
anything you want to share?
Okay, that was a lot more about my period than I thought you were going to share. But
It's all wrapped
that's
up. It's like
fine.
one bloody mess for me.
The only thing that I remember differently is on the bus ride, I thought that we weren't reading it together, but I was just telling you the whole plot like from memory, from me reading the book.
That's very possible.
Like I was giving you the oral history
Uh-huh.
of Gossip
Passed down
Girl.
from generation to generation, from a girl who has menstruated
Yeah.
to a girl who hadn't yet menstruated.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
definitely possible.
But I don't remember when or how I actually got into the books. I know I got into the books first, and I'm pretty sure I was getting them from the library. I think the books were really formative for us and was our first time reading about a lot of these things. Although I was very generally into like the genre of like rich boarding school
Yes.
teen books. It was like this whole world, they're away from home, but they're still like my age. I don't think I actually started watching the show until I was like in college, like when I was 18.
Yeah, I don't think I watched it until I was in college either, because if I had, it would have been with Yarden. But part of me feels like I saw Taylor Momsen's Smoky Eye before I went to college, but I can't,
Definitely.
like, I feel like
Well, I definitely knew the celebrities. Momsen was such a
she was,
thing.
and you know, she's kind of back. I was thinking about this yesterday in prep. Like, she's kind of like, she's back forming.
Really?
She's on tour right now.
Someone was showing me photos of Taylor Momsen being bitten on stage by a bat.
Roll.
This must have been, I listened to the Hunger Games episode where you discussed your rabies scare. So I can only imagine how triggering this must have been for you to see her get bitten on stage. Okay, I'm actually so glad we could talk about this too briefly, because I just want to say you're right about everything with respect to rabies. And my good friend is like terrified of getting rabies. And in the US, at least, you can't get the rabies vaccine unless you work at like a animal like control center or something.
We're living on the edge
Yeah.
constantly.
My encounter with Gossip Girl, I didn't read the books until later, so I was the opposite of you. But for me, I watched the TV show when I was like 11, and it was just the right time for me because in England, you go to school, you transfer to like big girl school at 11 or 13, and then you're immediately lumped in with everybody who's up to the age of like 16/18, depending on when you leave school. And so I remember thinking that I was so grown up, and then it really hit hard when I started watching Gossip Girl, and I was like, oh, this is the kind of thing that I'm going to be getting into.
Right.
This is gonna be my life.
The things they do on that show are so like unbelievably grown up. Like I was just watching an episode last night where Serena is like having an affair with a congressman.
It's so crazy how adult it is. I was also thinking that when I was rewatching some, because it's not just like, oh, because they're having sex and drinking. Like that's every teen show, and that is like lots of teens do that. Like it's not Euphoria. It's like they are behaving in like such an adult way. Like they're going to like fancy bars and getting martinis, and it seems like they're totally in control of their lives. Like they're
Yes. They
not
have complete
asking their
autonomy.
parent. Yes. Like they're like, sorry, mom, I'm going to Argentina for the holidays. Or
That's how they're communicating it. It's not can I go to Argentina?
yeah.
It's sorry, I'm going to be there for the holidays. Especially Chuck. Like Chuck
Like
is like he couldn't be more adult. I'm still not as grown up as Chuck is in like the first episode of Gossip Girl. He like has a 401k
how he's
and
like
he's like
always wearing a
14.
suit.
It's insane, like how much I thought that would be my life when I got to a certain age. But
Yes.
also, I went to boarding school, and every second of your life is mapped out by like an adult. Like, you don't have access to the internet, you don't have your phones, you're not allowed to leave the house without like a 40-year-old woman coming with you anywhere.
Do you think that that's still how it is? Like for kids that are like 10 years younger than us, like do you think they're not on their phones and like are they online? I just feel like I would be so online if I was at boarding school away from my parents, but like maybe it's not allowed. And maybe that would be like a nice it's like digital detox for teens.
I hope so. I hope
Mhm.
it's not allowed because for me it was so healthy. I think one of the reasons why I set this podcast up is I was cannon fodder for people who were trying to like commercialize a fandom. I'm so emotional. I can connect to anything. Like, and so if I were at home and I had free access to my phone, I would be the one who was like writing fan fiction about Harry Styles. I was allowed my phone like maybe like half an hour a day. You weren't allowed on the internet. You had like the big desktop browsers or whatever, and you were allowed them during homework period. And then the rest of the time was just like I lived in a room of 6 other girls, and all we did was just like chat shit the entire time. And I think that's such a privilege looking back.
I mean, I would love like to be put in a dorm room with like five other women and not have my phone and live there for like 9 months. That sounds like exactly what I need for my mental health.
Well, we all need community, I guess, and that's like the thing that's missing from our generation. The only thing is that it does get very Lord of the Flies. People weren't necessarily kind to each other. It's easy for me in hindsight to like evangelize this time, but also you don't get a moment to yourself like ever.
Nobody's exploring their bodies.
Yeah, it's contrary to all like pornographic imaginations. It's a very asexual place, boarding school,
Mhm.
at least for me. Maybe everyone else was like hooking up without me all the time.
It is so funny because like this genre of YA fiction set at boarding schools, both in like TV and book, really does not make it seem that way. Like, did either of you ever read the Gallagher Girls?
Sounds
It was like it was
familiar.
like Gossip Girl, but then they were also like spies, so there was like murder.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
I loved that specific genre too.
yes,
Like rich boarding school, but also they were
murder, and they're
spies or
spies.
someone was a murderer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're kind of like serving, like they have like a like pleated like like mini skirt uniform, and there's like a gun under the skirt. And
Yeah.
they're like 13. I feel like growing up on the West Coast of the US, I was like, this is what the East Coast is. I had never been to the East Coast when I was like reading all of these books and watching all of this content, I developed such a distorted image of what life in New York would be like reading these books. I was like thinking about how Gossip Girl influenced me. I genuinely like I feel like it had like a profound impact on the way that I applied to colleges, which is like so insane in retrospect, but I had like never been to the East Coast. So I remember I applied to NYU genuinely because, Vanessa gets into Tish and Dan doesn't. Looking back, it's so funny how we as like kids are just allowed to make these adult decisions. I
Yeah.
applied to Connecticut College just because it sounded to me like the kind of place that you would go in Gossip Girl. I had no idea what Connecticut actually was like. Like I just was like it's where like, Serena goes when she like leaves for a few years or whatever. Like I just had this insanely distorted sense of what the East Coast was like. Thank God I didn't go to Connecticut College, but I feel like I sent these applications away because of that like small voice in my head that was like thinking about this content that I had consumed.
I'm gonna be wearing my plaid
I'm gonna
skirts
have my
and I'm gonna
gun.
be
I'm gonna
like,
be wearing my blazer. Like everyone wears a suit to class every day at Connecticut College, obviously.
I definitely wanted to talk about the portrayal of New York as well. I feel like every TV show that takes place in New York, it's kind of a different New York. Like Sex and the City New York is different than Gossip Girl New York is different than Girls New York, it's different
Yeah.
than Broad City New York. And I had never been to New York until I moved there after college for 2 years. When I was there, I feel like I couldn't even connect what I was seeing to the same place that was like the Gossip Girl universe. Like even watching it back now, I'm like, this is a fake universe. And I'm sure it is like closer to some of like the worlds of these very elite people that go to private schools. And the only place that's like recognizable, I'm like, the Met
Yeah.
Steps, sure. Like that looks like the Met Steps. But like everywhere else that they are, I'm like, what is this?
I went to college in New York actually, and the reason I went to college in New York is because I had been dreaming about New York for so long. Funnily enough, my mom is from Connecticut.
Gosh, wait, ask her about Connecticut College. I'm so curious.
I remember going as a kid, so I grew up in London, and we would go to Connecticut, every 2 years. I remember going to like Greenwich, Connecticut, being like, I look like every other bitch. Like I look like a grungy, crusty version of what everybody here looks like, and they all like play lacrosse and play tennis. I went to college in New York because I had been so taken in by the idea that I was gonna make it in New York. I remember the first time I went to a college bar. I don't know if you guys have encountered this, but kids in the UK, I think, are exposed to alcohol and drugs a lot earlier than kids in New York. And so I remember the first time I went to like a bar, a frat party in New York, and my friends who I was going with, who I like met in my halls, were all like, yeah, we just took cocaine in the bathroom. And there were a lot of drugs at my school. But by the time I got to New York, I felt like, which is very sad, like I felt like I had passed that stage of my life. And I remember going to New York and being so underwhelmed by the fact that people were like railing lines in the bathroom of a dive. And I was like, can't we go and get like martinis at this hotel? Completely ruined my perception of that. But you did
Hmm.
watch Skins when you were younger.
Yes. And it is interesting like comparing the two. I do feel like even though Skins deals with like very adult themes like Gossip Girl does, they do it in such a different way. And I do feel like the characters in Skins always feel like very childlike to me. Like even when they're in these very adult situations, like they still feel like children in a way that in Gossip Girl you feel like you're watching like 25-year-olds navigate the Upper East Side, like we
Yes.
said. It's kind of interesting.
Wow.
Yes. I was literally just writing about this is the fact that like I love TV shows that have children and center things from a children's viewpoint, but only if those children respond like children. Because
Mm.
Mm.
when you watch something like Stranger Things, I'm like, why are these children so mature and they're aware of the stakes? And when they become
Yeah.
like babyish, that's how the script is disrupted. Whereas the underlying theme of the entirety of Skins is people reacting like teenagers because they don't know any better.
I feel like Gossip Girl, the first book, I think was the first time that I like encountered weed in media, which is interesting too,
So
because
funny.
Nate is like, he's kind of different in the show. Like, I feel like his main character
Mm.
trait in the books is that he's a like a stoner,
Slacker,
slacker
stoner.
stoner. And
Yeah.
in the show, he's kind of like, I was discussing this with my roommate last night who's a huge Gossip Girl fan, and she was like, he's actually like the least problematic. Like, he's kind of like the sweetie pie of the show, and he like takes ownership for like all of the bad things that happens. He's always like communicating clearly with people in the show. Like, he's always trying to have hard conversations with Serena.
He's so serious in the
He is
show.
so serious. In the books, he's always high. So
I
that's kind
think
of
even in the
interesting.
first season, he's the one who turns in his father.
He's a whistleblower.
So serious. As a 16-year-old, he's like calling the SEC.
Obviously, you don't appreciate that when you're 11 because 16 feels really far off. But I don't know about you, as I get older, I'm like now close to 30. I have so much more of an appreciation of how young I was at 17. I do remember Nate growing his own weed in the books. Sorry, this is me stereotyping like the West Coast and Washington. I feel like the West Coast feels very steeped in like stoner culture.
For
Yeah,
sure. I just feel like when we were like 10 or whatever, I guess 11, however old we were when we started reading the books, however old we were when Yarden got her period for the first time, I was very sheltered from weed still at that point in my life.
Were they doing like harder drugs in the book or no?
Maybe they were doing cocaine.
The only thing I really remembered from the book, which is like, this is so like just gay of me, is like when Serena and Blair kissed in the hot tub.
I remember that too.
I don't remember that. What happens?
I just remember like Gossip Girl writing about S&B having a kiss in the hot tub. But this again was when we were like 12, so I don't think, well, girls probably were at like sleepovers, but we hadn't encountered it.
Yeah, I really do think that the Gossip Girl book series was like kind of the first form of media to introduce us to a lot of these things, because we were just like so kid before
We
reading
were really
this.
innocent,
Yeah.
like tweens, so that's what you're learning
Yeah.
from this. Is like, yeah, probably people were kissing their girlfriends
But not
and
us.
smoking weed. We weren't. The other passage that I really remember from the book is when Nate and Blair have sex for the first time. She's wearing a dress and she takes off her dress and he says, "No bra, just Blair." And literally that plays in my head all the time. Like whenever I'm not wearing a bra, I'm like, "No bra, just Blair."
I feel like, as the book connoisseurs, you're going to have to tell me whether this is correct. I feel like Nate sleeps with Serena first in the book as well. It's their first time, both of their first times.
Yeah.
And they feel very comfortable with each other, and it feels very safe, and they are laughing at themselves. And I remember when it came to that period of my life, when I was thinking about having sex for the first time, I was like, that's what I want, is to be with someone who makes me feel safe and I trust, and it's very like funny and it's not very serious. And it's interesting with all of the fact that Gossip Girl is supposed to be like so aspirational, and that this like very human scene is something that stuck in my memory. Is that correct? Did I make that up?
That's correct.
I think it's correct.
I feel like in the books, like Serena and Nate was way more of an end game. And then in the show, well, the show I think just goes on too long, which we can talk about, but they lose those initial like, I don't know, those ships that I feel like were really central.
Yeah.
But the Serena Nate feels like so much less important in the show
Yeah.
than in the books.
Yeah.
Like just a flash in the pan.
Yeah, because they all swap around so much.
I was reading last night about how apparently the writers of the show at a certain point planned Gossip Girl to be Eric, but it was like leaked somehow. And so then they had to pivot and they made it Dan instead. I just feel like the relationship dynamics are very different with that context, because the relationship between Gossip Girl as this like person who's obsessed with Serena, and like she's kind of obsessed with like the attention from Gossip Girl the whole time, and then it creates this kind of finale where it makes sense for me that Dan and Serena end up together in the show in a way that I think if the show had stayed true to like the Nate Serena ship, it wouldn't have worked in the same way. But I can't even remember if they do reveal who Gossip Girl is in the books or not.
The thing is about making TV shows and making books is that writing a book is, as I imagine, such a solitary process.
Yeah.
If you're an author, you're not necessarily communicating to the fandom about what they want. And this is like a whole other thing about the commercialization of art, is that once you've sold the book, you can't give it back. It's one and done. Whereas with a season, if someone sees a plot line that they don't like, they can stop watching. Then fans drop off, and therefore you're much more limited. And so in TV shows, you're so much more beholden to the fandom than you are in books.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the latter seasons of Gossip Girl are so beholden to fan theories, or, oh, let's explore this because someone wrote this on Reddit, or the focus group said that we should have like Dan and Blair, which was such an unnatural plot point.
Yeah, very
And
very hard to watch.
Very hard to watch, and like
Offensive.
so, and as well, like it was, and I agree with you, because I think the drama was so intoxicatingly high school in the fact that it was so unrealistic. Like it was so unrealistic that teens would be in a hotel bar having martinis, and that was part of the draw. But when they became college students, and when they got to the age where that was no longer charming because it was like illicit, but it was actually acceptable because that was what you did, it just became a bit cringe.
Yeah.
And I think as well, not to bait anyone out from my high school, but in high school there were a few people who really modeled their personalities on Gossip Girls because they were trying to form their identity and becoming their own person. Whatever, it's all part of a process. I'm giving a lot of grace to those people because it was very insufferable at the time, but it was kind of charming because it did feel like a novelty. But if someone was to show up to a college party for real wearing a suit, I would be like, what the actual fuck are you doing?
Totally.
Because you actually have the autonomy as a person to be able to make that decision of your own volition rather than like being really edgy and quirky. So I think it was such a shame, of course, that Gossip Girl, they couldn't finish it because they were making so much money and it was like a force in and of itself, but it should have just stopped.
Yeah.
Because as well, again, like a comparison to Skins, I felt so much more drawn to Skins because it was stuck in these like very childish problems and ways of solving them. But when Chuck got his own fucking hotel, I was like, what sane person would sell a hotel to a 19-year-old? Like, what sane person would allow a 19-year-old to open a bar like without the licensing? That's so illegal.
Right. A 19-year-old who, mind you, is like a serial attempted rapist who then kind of like has, this is something else. I'm sorry to tangent, but I just have to say, like,
No, please.
I was like reflecting on Chuck's character arc last night, and I watched the first episode again just to like kind of bring myself back. It is insane. There are like 4 attempted sexual assaults in that episode. It's crazy. And the fact that like Chuck kind of ends up having this protagonist arc by the end where we're really rooting for him and Blair, at least I was.
Yeah, same.
I mean, talk about complex characters.
This for me is like the biggest way that I've noticed myself maturing in the rewatch is like being just like, this guy is actually just a rapist and an asshole. He's not like a tortured, like bad boy, sexy. But like when I was watching it, which mind you, I was 18, I wasn't like 13. When I was watching it at 18, I was like, this guy is hot and like he's done some fucked up stuff, but I'm still rooting for him and Blair.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, that
embarrassing.
Like, and no, but I totally relate to that. I feel like the Chuck character was like very foundational for probably a lot of young people in kind of creating this archetype of like, oh, the bad boy who's like whatever troubled, and you can like fix them, or you know, he's like good at his core, but he's like literally a rapist and like not a good guy. His character flaws are like very, very clear from the very beginning of the first episode.
Can you imagine if like a guy wore a suit to our high school and started talking like that, like that would have actually been insane and we would have not thought he was hot. We would have been like, what's wrong with you?
Totally. It's so true. There's a time and a place for all that.
I agree with you. My big crush growing up is Chuck. And now I'm so glad, but like in dating, when someone shows some of those like characteristics, that's where I'm like, oh, I've matured, is because I'm like, I just don't have time for this. You're obviously in love with yourself and you obviously think you're a tortured artist. And it's not attractive to me to clean up after you. Whatever the CW told you would make you like sexually successful.
It's not
When I
working.
was 16, it worked like a charm. I was like, that's my
Yeah.
future husband right there. He's so complicated.
The actor had some sexual assault allegations
Yes.
too. Do you guys remember this?
I do. And I just was
Um,
remembering last night too, he was in a relationship with the woman who plays Vanessa when they were filming the show, which is kind of interesting.
Oh,
But he
nice.
did
I
have
didn't know
sexual
that.
assault allegations. And the other day, like I saw he like posted his gorgeous wife on Instagram and it was like showed up on my feed as sponsored content. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, oh, I didn't know that he was like back in the like zeitgeist. Like I kind of thought he was still kind of canceled.
I wasn't aware of the sexual assault allegations, and that makes me really sad, but unfortunately not surprised.
I was thinking about this. I was very interested, I feel like, in the show and the actors that were like, especially Taylor Momsen, for whatever reason. She was like taking up a lot of space in my brain.
You were like a little bit into the emo
I
aesthetic.
was,
I was
for
about to
sure.
say, were you
I
like
was.
experimenting with that?
I was experimenting lightly with that. Yeah, for sure. And but I like never followed. I mean, maybe it was just like pre-social media. I don't recall any of the actors promoting their brand outside of the show during that time period.
They were definitely in the
2000s.
media.
They were in the
Like I remember seeing them in magazines because that was
Yeah,
like the
that's
media I was
true.
consuming
Yeah.
at the time. Like Chase Crawford, and also like I remember this Rolling Stone cover because my dad got Rolling Stone magazine and I would always read them, and the cover was um Leighton Meester and Blake Lively. They were like
Kissing in a
sharing
hot
this
tub.
ice cream cone
They were
with two
Oh, they kind of
scoops.
were.
They kind of were. They were like both licking the ice
All
cream.
Blair,
And
no
then I
bra.
remember I think they might have been like naked too. I don't know. And then I remember the next
I think that might
issue,
just be you.
in the next issue of the magazine, in like the letter, when people write letters in, someone was like, "Did you guys realize that if the cone part of the magazine is covered, it looks like they're licking balls?" And I was like, "Oh my God, it does."
I can't believe that they
Wait, was it
published
like
that as like a
a
letter to the editor. It's like insane.
also like the photographer definitely knew what they were doing when they were
Yeah,
like,
that's
Totally.
the
definitely
concept for the shoot is you're gonna share an ice cream cone. Like obviously,
Right.
with two scoops.
yeah. Like I'm sorry, like they knew what they were doing. Like it's such a ridiculous. It's so self-referential to post that and be like,
Yeah,
I bet you
I
anything
know.
someone didn't even write that in. They just wrote that into themselves, and they were like, Did
They
you
were
guys
like,
get it?
"We
Did you
want
get
you
it?"
guys
We
to
can't tell if they
know."
all know. Okay,
Yeah,
also Leighton
anyways,
Meester's
also
her musical career, like Good Girls Gone
I was gonna
Bad.
say
Yeah.
that. Yes, we loved that
Yeah,
song.
that was an awesome song.
I still love that song.
Yeah,
I'd still
it's really
listen
Me
to
good.
it
too. It
regularly.
came on in a workout playlist recently, and I was like, yeah.
I don't know how true this is, but like the story that we're told about Leighton Meester was kind of inspiring. Like, you know, born in prison and had this like really hard life. It was like very fun to root for her as an actress, I feel like, when we were younger.
I didn't know she was born in prison. I didn't know her story.
That's what Hannah was telling me. I knew she
But-
had a troubled life. I didn't know she was born in prison until yesterday.
But she definitely was my favorite actor in this series. I think I like Blair. I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but I feel like she's the self-insert character, at least for me, because I feel like Serena, it's like everything comes so easy to her. And Blair, even though she's so rich and privileged, she struggles.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally.
So I felt like she was more relatable. I don't really follow them now, but I have been watching I Love LA, and she has a part in that show. I was watching that like back to back with the old Gossip Girl episodes, and I was like, wow, she's grown up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess we all have. This sounds so ridiculous. Like I'm so
protective of Blair as a character, I think, just because none of them try for anything. Like, yes, okay, Nate in the film isn't a real stoner, but he's not academic. Like, he's never studying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Blair is the only person who seems to really struggle for academic validation, even though she has all the resources in the world with the whole college admissions thing. I had my own struggle with that at the time. It's not a sob story, but you know, I was expecting something else. And it was kind of refreshing to watch someone else like really have to try hard for the things that she got. And I liked the tension between the two, like Blair and Serena, for that. But I'm so defensive over Blair as a character because she's such an icon that in my mind, I think very childishly, I have to believe that somewhere she does exist. So when I see Leighton Meester as a person, like as an actress or as a person, I'm like offended because I'm like, no, 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 so sorry. I have to
Yeah.
believe that she's like running a magazine on the Upper East Side. It's essential to my character development as a person
Uh-huh.
that I feel very protective over her, in a way that I
Yeah,
don't feel over
I
the
feel
others.
that.
Yeah.
Especially because like Blake Lively is so much bigger than just Serena. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
don't when I see Blake Lively, I don't think Serena Vanderwoodson, but when I see Leighton Meester, I'm like
That's
Blair.
Blair. Yeah, this is kind of embarrassing to admit. So I'm kind of exposing myself here, but when I started watching the show, I do remember like kind of idolizing Serena, which is like such a red flag. But I remember being like, she's so beautiful, like she's so blonde. I was charmed by the Serena like qualities that charm everyone in the show, you know. I felt like I was like maturing as I was watching the show and starting to realize like, you know, how pick me all of her behavior was and how like she cannot like take responsibility for anything that happens to her. To be frank, it took some time for me to like go from Team Serena to Team Blair. And then when I did become Team Blair, she just becomes a very insufferable character to watch for me.
I was exactly the same. Of course, you're supposed to. I think that's part of the privilege of like growing up with the characters is that you are initially Team Serena because you root for her as a person because she is an aspirational character, but you see so much more of yourself in the effort. I think we all have a Serena in our lives, probably, of like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm trying so hard and I'm doing all the right things and I'm studying and I'm sending off those job applications and I'm working those extra hours and someone is just like effortlessly charming and beautiful and everyone seems to fall in love with them. Maybe I'm
Yes.
just bitter and immature, but like it is a very relatable, even though all of Blair's life is unrelatable, that is the one thing that you're just like, oh, I have this
Yeah.
friend who it comes so easily for.
Yeah.
And all of her massive mistakes are erased, and everyone just seems to fall at her feet, and it's just really irritating.
Totally. She's like the archetypal, like main character, pretty privileged. Like it just works out for her.
Like you're supposed to think that Blair is kind of a bitch and she is like actually such a good person because yeah, she messed up. She had a drunken night with Nate. She's trying to make the friendship work with Blair and Blair's the one like shutting her out.
But then you start to see this pattern of behavior like over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
there's more drunken night mess ups.
Yeah, I'm a big Blair apologist.
Every time I wear a headband, I think about Blair.
I bought a dress yesterday that I feel like was heavily influenced by the recent Gossip Girl episode rewatches in preparation for the very like holiday party, like wool plaid dress with like a pleated skirt. And I was like, Blair.
It's definitely also a
Yeah.
style that I don't know if you guys have this, but my mum will buy me dresses to go to like family events, and I'm like, it's very Blair. You know, when she in the first episode, the one where she sleeps with Chuck, which is, by the way, like deserves to be in a museum of like iconic scenes, but when she goes to the strip club for the first time and she's wearing that dress and when she puts it on earlier in the day she like looks at her mom and she's like, I look like I was on the Mayflower, and I have never felt so seen because when I was at school, a lot of schools in England you wear uniform, so the time that you're not dressed in uniform is like very few and far between because you're in school the whole time. And I remember my mom, God bless her soul, would go and like buy me dresses that were like up to my chin and like down to my feet, and they became very helpful for me when I like moved abroad and I started to live in places where like you have to dress more modestly. But when I was a teenager I was like, no, I want to be like, because again, Serena's outfits
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine letting your 15, 16-year-old daughter outside in some of those? Absolutely fucking not. Like, no,
I
no,
was just
no.
watching the Thanksgiving episode, and for whatever reason, she's wearing like what could be called a modest dress. Like it's like black and like whatever covers her shoulders. But then it has this like cutout. It goes all the way down between her boobs, and then it has like mesh. And the idea that you would be getting dressed for like a family Thanksgiving, which I
That's
also just want to say,
crazy.
iconic episode. What you say. Yeah, I mean, insane. Like rewatching that in preparation for this, I was like, this show is genuinely so good. Like, no one is doing it like this anymore. I highly recommend revisiting that episode.
Wait, I just wanted to say, like, before we move on from the fashion, I feel like preppy now apparently means like Lululemon and like bright colors, at least in the US, and like Stanley Cups or something. So I would like to see a resurgence
Ugh,
of this preppy
me
style.
too. Like, I so clearly remember at the end of that summer where we went to sleepaway camp, I remember going to the mall to get my first day of school outfit. And I don't know if you remember this outfit, Yarden, but it was like this plaid skirt that was like to my knees. And I bought a statement black huge belt with like a giant buckle to belt the high-waisted skirt. I got colored tights, but not in like the cool way that people are wearing colored tights now. It was just like I was trying to color match like the whole thing in this
Uh-huh.
just horrible combination, and like ballet flats. And I remember like what happened to middle schoolers wearing pea coats to school? We're not doing that
Literally, we were
anymore.
doing
We
that.
were we were like
What
little
do you think that
business
was
women,
because of Gossip Girl? Yeah, we were dressed like I wore like a blazer, I
like little
think,
investment
once in eighth
bankers
grade.
going to like world science class 1.
I do think the fashion was absolutely fucking ridiculous. Serena's outfits were extremely revealing for someone who was supposed to be 16, 17 years old. There was one kid who was Chuck, who was running around in silk scarves and like matching three-piece suits. And and then there was
Three
Blair
piece.
who dresses like she's a 50-year-old like businesswoman all the
Yes.
time. I thank God every day that my school had a uniform, which is such a good equalizer.
Yeah, that sounds kind of
You were
thing.
spared from like being able to experiment with this horrible fashion like as a middle schooler, because like trying to like achieve Gossip Girl style when your like ballet flats are like soaking wet and your peacoat is like covered in dog hair and you live in like the Pacific
And
Northwest and
your
your hair is super
and your
greasy
budget is Forever
and your budget
21.
is Forever 21. Like we were trying.
At the time, I was so upset about it. And I remember I got told off a lot because I had a lot of piercings, and you're not allowed to have a lot of piercings. You're not allowed to have nail varnish. You're not allowed to have anything. But I'm so glad because it stops your parents from having to spend money. It stopped people from getting like bullied for the clothes that they wore. You have to have your hair tied up all times. You're not allowed to have your phone on you, and you have to have like one of three different types of shoes, and that's it. And it was like,
Yeah.
I'm so pleased. The only thing that went wrong, and I went traveling for a year, which is very common in England, and then I went to uni in the US and I bought all my clothes for the US. And I remember my mum told me she knew what like all the kids in the US were wearing. My mum bought me like, I shit you not, maybe like 8 Hillary Clinton suits. I was wearing those to the
She had been
bars
watching
every
Gossip
weekend.
Girl.
She had been watching Gossip Girl. I went dressed, all of these other kids went dressed in like athleisure and like tracksuits to their lectures. And I was there with like a chignon and like a matching suit, like a brightly colored suit. It was so embarrassing.
So funny.
It
That
took
is
me
so
until
funny.
like halfway through sophomore year to dress like a normal person.
You were the Chuck Bass of your
You
class.
were.
I had no idea. I had never dressed myself before. Like I had never.
Yeah.
And every day, oh my God.
You were putting those
Um,
slacks on every morning.
I'd never worn a trainer during the day. I had only worn loafers like every
Um,
single day.
Very.
Did the show encourage you to think about yourself or the world or social dynamics in a certain way?
I didn't see anything in my life growing up that was remotely close to Gossip Girl. I mean, I would be curious to like talk to someone who grew up in New York. But for me, like New York Gossip Girl almost was like fantasy. It definitely like shaped some things that I thought were like possible as an adult. Like it shaped like some of my desires or dreams, but I don't think that it other than like wearing horrible things to school, I don't think it totally shaped like how I was acting day to day when I was watching it. I don't know. What do you think, Den?
Yeah, I also it felt so removed in like a fantasy world. I agree with that. But also Allegra, I think you talked earlier about there still being like these universal like human moments like Nate and Serena having like their sweet first time. And I do really remember when I was watching the series for the first time when I was 18, the whole dynamic of Blair and Chuck and the whole I love you drama and like how she really wanted to say that to him and wanted him to say it to her. And that I was super relating to that at the time with my boyfriend at the time. And so like there were still things that I was connecting to, even if like, everything else about their lives was completely different to
Yeah,
my
that's
life.
such a good point. I feel like that's part of what makes the show so good is it's like set in this totally ridiculous like environment and they have completely unattainable lives, but the like teenage drama, despite the fact that like they're hooking up in whatever, like the Ritz, it's like you can still relate to so many of the interpersonal dynamics and like growing pains of that age.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, obviously it's supposed to be an aspirational show, but especially like in your rewatch, are there any storylines that you're like, that was insane even for a TV show? What bothers me is the fact that Nate was editor in chief of a magazine because he like had sex with the editor one time.
I do remember feeling like it kind of went off the rails. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
already off the rails with stuff that was happening in high school, but like really after they went to college, especially because I feel like so much of it was built up to like where are they going to go to college? And then they went, and then it almost seemed like a season later, like none of them were in college anymore, but it was like unclear what had happened and just constantly like crazy stuff was happening all the time. Like, didn't one of them marry a royal for a little bit?
I think
Blair.
yes, Blair.
Yeah, literally just every episode, like something ridiculous is happening.
Yeah.
Have you watched the reboot?
No.
Yes, yes, I did want to bring that up as well. I watched the first season. I mean, it just wasn't good, I guess.
Yeah. Are they the same
But
characters or
they're new characters, but you can tell like some of them they're trying to make this be the Blair, like
yeah.
this be the Chuck.
Mm.
And they're definitely like trying to modernize it, like she's an influencer and like
Mm.
these people are in a throuple. I couldn't get into it. It didn't have that magic spark.
Yeah.
And also shows back then during the time of original Gossip Girl, like the seasons are like 26 episodes. And you just have so much less room in like a 10 episode season on HBO to do what needs to be done.
Right. Such
Songs.
good songs. I was thinking about this. I was trying to think about like what contemporary shows even come close. And the only thing I can think of is The Summer I Turned Pretty, I think has like they're doing a lot with
Yeah.
like incorporating contemporary music and like their budget for music must be insane. And it is reminiscent to me of Gossip Girl. But yeah, like the music in Gossip Girl is just like it's so good.
Also, wasn't Lady Gaga like in an episode?
Yes, Hilary
Like,
Duff is like, well, she's not
yeah.
Oh
playing
yeah,
herself, but she's like Dan's girlfriend.
that's the threesome scene, which also
Mm-hmm.
very iconic.
Very
Very
iconic.
iconic.
Okay, I have a bone to pick with the Summer I Turned Pretty. I feel like a lot of TV is, as we've just said, it's now like in a 10 episode thing, so a lot of the storylines are really condensed. But even so, I feel like a lot less happens in an episode now than it used to happen
Yes.
in the past. From what I had heard, it was because of the two screen theory. Have you guys heard about this?
Yeah.
Down.
So, like, the people's attention spans are so short at the moment that you're not going to be watching the TV episode, you're going to be doing a million other things. So, everything has to be super digestible. I definitely had that first realization with Emily in Paris, where I was like, this doesn't seem to have any plot points. There are no side plots.
Everything's a lot less complex, and I really felt that with The Summer I Turned Pretty. And then also I studied diplomacy and cultural diplomacy, but to me, The Summer I Turned Pretty is just American propaganda. I
I
think
feel
it's
like I need to
super
revisit
weird.
it through this lens.
It's super weird. Like, it's so Americana in a way that I
Mm.
feel like it could be like a Lana Del Rey video from like
Mm-hmm.
2011, and with none of the dark stuff, like the roadside fruit stands, the like volleyball tournaments.
When you were Tiana was like telling me to watch it, you were like, it's a lot of like New England coastal porn.
Yes, like
Yeah.
it's a different aspirational place on the East Coast. There's so many of these. Like there's Gossip Girl New York, there's The Summer I Turned Pretty Cousins. Like they're just like these these places that don't exist, but that
Yeah.
we push.
Mm.
Watching The Summer I Turned Pretty, I was like, why do I suddenly feel like I want to get a beach house on the East Coast of the US?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I was like, oh, it's because this is just selling me a beach house.
Their real estate money like invested in the summer I did.
Totally.
Yeah.
To your point about the two screen theory and like things being so drawn out, that's something that I also love about Gossip Girl. Like the show does parallel cuts so well. Like those one of the really iconic sequences is uh Serena hooking up with Nate and then like at the same time being sexually assaulted by Chuck. And they like
Oh,
cut
yeah.
between and then also at this, it's like three parallel cuts because it's also cutting to Nate and Blair having this like fight about Serena hooking up with Nate in the moment. And it's like
Mm.
so fast paced. You can't look at your phone. Like they're giving you the three screens on the one screen. You don't need to like find two screens
Yeah.
of your own. It's something I love about the show. They did that really well.
You go through a lot in 40 minutes, and the plot is pushed forward a lot. Whereas now I feel like if I'm watching a 10 episode thing, the pacing is so off.
And maybe not with like a prestige show like Severance or something, but with a Emily in Paris, like you can miss an episode and you have no problem
Right.
like
No.
understanding what's going on. But if you miss a Gossip Girl episode, you've missed like 10 things happening. Like Chuck's dad died, like someone's getting married.
Someone's in jail.
I think it's so cute as well. I was going to compare you to my grandparents. This is nice, I swear.
We get this a
Because-
lot.
Yeah. Because it's so lovely when people have been friends or entwined in each other's lives for a long time and they rely on each other for their memories. And I was listening to you guys be like, oh, were we sharing the book or were you telling me the story? And like, oh, I remember it just like that. So I was like, oh, that's really sweet. But other than that, I was going to say, was your engagement with it more like individual or was it more communal?
I would say with the show, for me, it was very individual. Like, I think probably because everyone had already seen it at that point. But I was like either watching it alone in my dorm room or I remember binging a lot of it at home during winter break. But I think, yeah, the show was individual and the books earlier were shared with Kaia.
Well, it's interesting. I agree. And I kind of miss this like element of friendship now. At least something that Den and I did a lot was like reading these book series like pre-phone, and you would be like reading a book series and then you would talk about it with your friend as if they were like people that you knew in real life or like drama in your community. Like we didn't really have drama when we were like 10 or whatever, so we would be like reading these books like The Click or Gossip Girl and then like talking about it at like sleepovers, and it was just like how we consumed media.
Wait, Kaia, do you remember that we almost started a Gossip Girl vlog?
No? Wait, what do you? Oh, you mean for our school? For our school. Yes. Like we
Yeah.
wanted to be Gossip Girl.
We wanted to be Gossip
Yeah,
Girl, and
incredibly on brand.
we made an email address, and we like drafted the first post.
I wish we could find it. This is also
Oh my
like
God.
so yeah, we weren't
That's
really
so
like smoking
scandalous.
weed. We were more like the Dan character, conspiring on the side and observing, you know, the insiders of the social group.
It makes sense that you run a podcast now, then. That makes sense.
I know. I'm so glad we never published it.
Yeah. It's funny to think like I do think that those sorts of things did emerge, and I think that they were super influenced by Gossip Girl. Like when we were in high school, there was like Ask FM,
And then Yik Yak
Yik
in
Yak, and then
college.
also there.
Yeah. Well, gossip is, or it used to be, like a very important social function for living in a community. But I've said this a million times, such a difference between like telling a friend that man is dangerous and he made me feel uncomfortable to like, you can see her underwear through her skirt. It bothers me
Yeah.
that they're grouped together. I went to a boys' school. There were like 100 boys, 150 boys, and they let in like 30 or 40 girls. And it was, as you would imagine, a
Oh my
total
God.
shit show. But they had Yik Yak. And obviously, all these boys were such misogynists that it was immediately taken over as like a way to be disgusting
Yeah.
about women. Why exactly do you think it was such a hit? Like, why did it occupy this space in our collective consciousness?
What really stands out is like the fact that they are teens that act like adults and have such autonomy. And that was what was so appealing
Yeah,
to me, at
totally. I
least.
agree. That was like what made their lives so compelling. It was like so fun to watch people that theoretically like could be you doing these things that you could never do. And I think also
Yeah.
like
Moving large sums of money around.
creating offshore bank accounts, investing heavily in financial instruments that I wasn't aware of at that time.
It's so funny as well that you were like, oh, she told her mom she was staying in Argentina or whatever for the holidays. I know this is going to be released later on, but right now it's just before Christmas. I told my mom that I wasn't having dinner with the family because I had to do this interview. I put it in the family calendar like days before. My mom lost her shit. And it was for one dinner, like 3 days before Christmas. So it makes me cackle that at 16, someone was texting them and being like, I'm going to be in Argentina. Like,
Totally.
I
Like
would never.
It was literally like the day before she left.
No, I would get a message being like, don't bother coming back.
may we all strive for the level of autonomy of Chuck Bass at age 15 as we enter our 30s.
Who is your current celebrity crush?
Okay. I won't spend too much time on this because this could be a whole nother episode, but this has been a pretty enduring celebrity crush for me. My first celebrity crush ever was like a very intentional. I was watching Harry Potter 1 and I was like, I need to have a celebrity crush because that's what people do, even though I'm like 10 and have like no romantic feelings to anyone. And I picked Oliver Wood because he just was like this generic boy who I thought was appropriate, which I've now been told he kind of resembles my current partner, which is so funny. But my very long-standing celebrity crush is Robert Pattinson, and I think it's very influenced by him being like such a titan of the media that we were consuming in our teenage years, like insane run between Twilight and Harry
Yeah.
Potter.
Yeah.
And I think he was just like so influential as a character in a time where I was really like having crushes and idolizing celebrities in a way. I mean, I still do that, but like the heartbreak I'm experiencing now about celebrity crushes is not as visceral as the heartbreak I was experiencing when I like thought that somehow I was gonna meet
them. You were
them.
going to fall in love, yeah.
So I'll say Robert Pattinson.
That's such an awesome long-standing crush because he's still so relevant and has
Yeah.
like aged
Really
with us and
well.
is still doing cool
Yeah.
Totally.
things. Like
May he never be canceled. Yeah, I think that part of the crush for me too is that he's kind of playing hard to get with the amount of visibility he gives us into his life. He's like seemingly very offline. Like he doesn't have like Instagram accounts or anything like that. And then every few years we get like an interview with him. And I've
Yeah.
like always been very charmed by his personality. This is like so parasocial, but yeah, he's gonna be my pick for the day. There's no one really like doing it for me, right? I mean, Josh O'Connor. I'm enjoying his work these days.
yeah. Unlike Kaia, my celebrity crushes are always very temporal. Like I don't have a long-standing one. Although maybe Parvati Shallow from Survivor, which Kaya actually got me a cameo from her one year where she called me a little bitch.
Oh.
Fuel
Was
to the fire.
exciting. But my current celebrity crush is Lara Raj from Cat's Eye. She's so
Oh,
hot.
she's really
and
hot.
has the most swag to me.
Oh, she's gorgeous.
and she's
yeah.
queer, so
There we
Yeah,
go.
she's
Could
beautiful.
happen.
I have a chance.
You've got a chance. Meet cute incoming.